All right, YouTube, you've got major news coming in U.S. politics with the campaign right now. Quite a few different news stories. First, there was leaked audio from Rubio's campaign manager, actually. And this is on Breitbart. I'll dig out the link and I'll put it in the description. It's actually an unlisted video for some reason. Breitbart loves to do this. Leaked audio in which he suggests that Rubio's active plan at this point is not to actually win the nomination with delegates, which, is basically impossible for him to do, but that his plan is to get to a brokered convention and use the brokered convention rules to force a second vote, and then make a convincing argument that the GOP should nominate somebody who is probably going to be third in the delegate total. This is essentially, for those who haven't fully analyzed this or are unaware, this is an admission by the campaign manager of Marco Rubio to a bunch of donors and RNC insiders that he can't actually win. Now, where's your electability argument now when you've got a candidate from the mainstream with over, I think it's like 200 endorsements now, the sort of darling of the Romney and Karl Rove figures within the Republican Party? Where's the electability argument he keeps trotting out on the debate stage and in his rallies when his own campaign manager is saying, oh no, he can't win, an absolute total in delegates, we're going to have to use a brokered convention? Blows it completely out of the water. Everything that he's been saying for some time has been apparently a lie. Now, I'm not surprised by that, but perhaps some of Rubio's softer support is very interested to learn this. He then canceled 2 rallies. He canceled in Kentucky and Louisiana. It just came out this morning. It looks like his campaign is already dead, and he's just not willing to drop out quite yet. He's waiting till Florida, maybe. He can't win Florida at this point. Now, this is going to hurt him perhaps even more than his Super Tuesday showing when it hits the mainstream media. And I don't mean just Breitbart. I mean when it goes fully national, as it probably will. Drudge is picking it up. Some of these other publications. You'll see Fox try to cover for him, but there's big problems for Rubio at tonight's debate as well. Fox News is now taking a hands-off approach, and not just Fox. Roger Ailes, who heads it, has said we're washing our hands of Rubio, probably because he got wind of this recording and doesn't want to see his own party completely destroyed. Rupert Murdoch this morning came out and said essentially the same thing. Mitt Romney came out and tried to attack Donald Trump, but it doesn't really work because Trump just has to point out, well, he loved me so much and thought I was great and a genius when he wanted my endorsement and for me to sign him a check. So most people, I would think, that support Donald Trump don't really care what Mitt Romney has to say, because Mitt Romney is kind of the face of the establishment. Mitt Romney also steadily has pulled behind what Donald Trump has pulled at in this race. Remember, I pointed this out. At this time in the race in 2012, Romney still hadn't cracked 40%, or just barely. He was consistently, down as low as the high teens at several points. That has never happened to Donald Trump. His high floor has buoyed him above the level which others can get to. And so the Rubio campaign is now actively admitting that Rubio is not actually capable of winning and that they're counting on a brokered convention and a second vote. Essentially what happens at such a convention, first, you have the first vote. Everyone is supposed to cast their votes for the candidate that they have been pledged to by their states. Because nobody under this scenario has reached the delegate total necessary to win, it then goes to a second vote after some debate and squabble and speeches made, in which Rubio hopes to convince at least a slim minority of those backing like Trump or Cruz that he's the one to unify the party and that they should, on the second vote where they're not pledged to anyone specifically, vote for him. Whether this would work or not, I think, is open to debate. I have a feeling that a lot of those delegates would end up actually backing whoever had the most delegates to begin with, whoever got the highest popular vote, even if it didn't reach the threshold. I like to believe that they're not completely suicidal. And even if somebody like Romney would rather back Hillary Clinton, which, a lot of these people are saying, oh, we'll back Clinton before we back Trump. Even if a lot of the insiders, the billionaire donor class, would rather back a corporate candidate like Hillary as opposed to somebody who is from the donor class, who has made it clear he's not sucking their cock, the cocks for money. Even if they would, it's not clear that the officials that make up the delegations themselves would have a similar opinion. Yes, they're from the political insider class. That's very much true. But these tend not to be billionaire donors. These are like the local and state level sort of officials that have become part of these delegations. I think that you'll find a vast difference between the opinions of the RNC and these groups. And by the way, on the debate stage tonight, for those worried, oh, Megyn Kelly's heading it and she hates Trump, she may not particularly like Trump. I choose to believe it hasn't been quite as unfair as some of Trump's fans have tried to spin it as being, and Trump himself. I think she's going to softball him tonight, and I tell you why. Murdoch and Ailes have both come out and washed their hands of Rubio, who is the only viable insider, so-called viable insider, he now admittedly is not, left. In his absence as a viable candidate, because his campaign manager is saying he's not actually capable of reaching the proper delegate total, they then have to choose neutrality, essentially, because the two people in the race that are left that are viable, one of them is a self-funded donor class billionaire. The other is a T-evangelical from Canada, who still faces active suits against his eligibility. So what exactly is Fox News supposed to do to stop Trump at this point? The Cox have washed their hands of the situation. Murdoch has said, fuck it, I don't care. Ailes has said, we're going to rally behind whoever the nominee is. Increasingly, you're getting these calls because at this point, a lot of these people, while they do not like Trump, and they might even like Hillary more, they're not willing to, they're not going to screw around. I don't even expect a brokered convention, which some people are expecting, because it would be suicidal. What it would end up doing is creating a schism within the Republican Party that would create a three-party system. You would have the GOP's core as the war-hawking neocons, the Democratic Party, and then you would have a new conservative party, which the Tea Party actively talked about for some time. Little did they know somebody like Donald Trump might be the beacon that draws them in like moths to a street lamp to actually form such a movement. Murdoch and the Cox and all these others who attempt to control and make money off of the Republican Party as a corporate entity, which is really what a political party has devolved into in this country, are not stupid enough to break their own cash cow. Whereas the people heading the RNC, making their money on a lower level, actually organizing things, attempting to fundraise and coordinate everything, there's no reason for them not to continue attacking Donald Trump. But Fox News has clearly now stated they're taking a hands-off approach. I think that you'll see a steady waning of attacks against Trump. They'll trot Romney out to go try to beat him down. They'll get Cruz and Rubio to attack him up on the debate stage, and he has already pivoted to the general election. He knows now that he is the clear front runner, that Rubio cannot actually achieve the delegates needed to be nominated, that Ted Cruz is in the Santorum corner, as I've said many times. Neither of them is capable of stopping him from having the highest delegate total, even if he doesn't reach the threshold. He will be the Republican nominee, unless scheming and pandering behind the scenes creates a brokered convention that goes like it did in 2012, denying the election to someone who's pulling in 3 times as many votes as Ron Paul did, and more votes indeed than Romney ever did. Turnout is high on the GOP side. Trump is correct when he says he's bringing new people into the party. And what he's echoing is Ronald Reagan. He's a former Democrat. Let's not mince words. Trump is a former Democrat largely in earlier years up through the 80s. at least until, he took a liking apparently to Reagan, and then he remained a donor to everyone in order to get political favors from people, which is why a lot of these folks have dropped off of actually attacking him. He has a huge Christie, he probably donated to Chris Christie. You get to the point where these people realize there's not much they can do to stop him, but again, he's got little political experience, like Reagan, former Democrat turned actual conservative, as opposed to the neocons. Reagan was sort of the missing link between the second wave conservatives that were tolerable and okay, the Ikes and so forth, and the neocons that come under the Bush years. Ronald Reagan was certainly better than Herbert Walker, certainly better than W. Not great, tolerable to a greater degree than the dedicated war-hawking Zionist neocons we've suffered through lately. Certainly better than a corporate leftist like Hillary Clinton, who's basically just another neocon anyway. I would think that a paleocon, by the way, like Ron Paul, inevitably would at least like a return to conservatism, which has been absent from the GOP since the day that Herbert Walker Bush took office. And since then, you have seen this country go into steep decline. Ronald Reagan reigned over the last true boom time in the United States. Was he perfect? No. In fact, what he did was stand up on stage, make wisecracks, and spit platitudes out, instead of discussing substantive issues, which has been a frequent criticism of Donald Trump. What they don't realize is that he's being vague on many of these issues, specifically because he intends to solve the problem, but he intends to negotiate using his skill set, specifically to get the best possible outcome. Business Insider comes out, says basically, well, if Trump is successful, he'll be remembered as one of the greatest presidents, but if he fails, he'll be down around the bottom 3 or 4. He'll be a complete miserable failure, maybe start World War III. I think that's actually a fairly accurate depiction. If Trump faces as much stonewalling from Congress if elected as he has as a candidate, then he will be a miserable failure. Because other than a few executive order-based projects, he won't actually be able to get much done. He'll probably get his wall, but that alone is not necessarily going to be enough to buoy his presidency. He needs more than that, especially when he's made so many vague promises to the American people. We're going to make America great again is his entire fucking slogan. If he falls short of actually great things, he will be remembered at best as mediocre and would be a disappointment for most of his fans. He probably wouldn't win re-election, although I predict if he does win, he won't run for re-election. He'll attempt to get as much done in one term as possible, then he'll quit. He'll say, I'm not running for re-election. I've already done what I wanted. I'm going to go make my wife's vagina great again. That's essentially what he'll do. He's also, he'd be almost 80 years old at the end of his second term. That's not a great idea. You want that charismatic stance to continue. He doesn't want to run the risk of Reagan, a la his second term, slowly succumbing to early stage dementia. Even though he's probably privy to treatments for that now. He can get on any test trial he wants, but why run the risk, essentially? By the way, Sanders would probably do the same. Hell, if Sanders gets elected, he might not even survive one term. I might have a heart attack and drop dead from the stress in his first term, for all we know. But, yeah, Roger Ailes has taken a hands-off approach, said we're no longer going to shill Rubio. It's an admission that Fox has been shilling Rubio on the same day that you get an admission from Rubio's campaign that he can't win. They're handing the election at this point to Trump on a golden platter. They're still trying to fight him, but they keep making these stupid mistakes that no sane person would make, and making it easier and easier for him to say, look, obviously the media is against me. Look at what they're saying in their own words. They're admitting that they're against me, that they don't like me, that they're trying to stop me. This is going to remain at least a 4-man race through Ohio. Kasich's not going to drop out before Ohio. Rubio is not going to go anywhere. He's canceling rallies, apparently. He knows he can't compete in Louisiana and Kentucky. Word is, I don't know if he holds any rallies in Maine either. Trump may sweep the next 4 states that are up in a couple of days. I expect him to lose Kansas, but he's almost certain to win Kentucky. He's almost certainly going to win Maine. He's got a great chance in Louisiana. At that point, he's basically won the entire Deep South. He's solidified his hold over New England. There's a couple more New England states to go, and he's certainly got control of New York, and nobody denies that. Where exactly can Rubio put together enough delegates to win? He can't. That's why his campaign came out and said this. Same is true for Cruz. Cruz won 3 states. His home state, he pulled off a narrow win in Oklahoma and in Alaska. He has a reason to stay in. He won his home state, so he doesn't have to worry about, his re-election bid in a few years. So yeah, of course he should stay in. Ted Cruz absolutely should stay in until the convention. He won't win, but he should definitely remain in, rack up as many more victories as he can, which I would say 4 or 5 states, certainly. Kansas, Idaho, probably. Probably win several more victories from the evangelical states of the Midwest. There's no reason for him to leave. He could even win Missouri. I don't think so, but he could. It's within the realm of possibility. He's shown a tenacity of that side of the Bible Belt as opposed to the Deep South. The fact that he's no longer competitive in Dixieland means he doesn't have a path to the nomination. He can't reach the delegate total he needs. Rubio will face increasing pressure to drop out. At that point, because there's no longer a viable establishment candidate in the running, Kasich doesn't rise to that level, the RNC will probably shut up and swallow Trump. They'll say, okay, well, there's nothing we can do about it. We waited too long. We were dumb. Ultimately, it was our fault. So we're going to try to, instead of doing what we've done for the last half a year, which is just try to beat Trump over the head and get smacked down for it, we'll try to offer him an olive branch here. And you heard, when Trump made his press conference after winning big on Super Tuesday, what did he do? He extended an olive branch to the GOP. Murdoch accepted it. Ailes accepted it. The Koch brothers appear to have accepted it. That's important because the Koch brothers are one of the few groups that have the money to actually stop him. This anti-Trump pack that's being set up by people like Romney and people like Karl Rove may end up not going anywhere because it will have far less funding than it actually needs to have any real effect. And by the way, we're in an election where the more you spend at this point, the weaker you look. It honestly, because the front runner is largely self-funded and underpaying in every possible aspect, fewer ads than everybody else, not really concerned with fundraising. Anybody else who has to go out of their way to try to attack him using expensive means looks weak by comparison. That just helps buoy his support even further. And people like Murdoch and Ailes and so forth have come to this realization, but has Karl Rove? No. He was still doing his famous whiteboard shtick, and on Super Tuesday, he did exactly what he did in 2012 with Romney in Ohio and Virginia. He sat there on live air with Fox, said, oh, well, Rubio can still win Virginia, and then the race was called for Trump literally 10 seconds after he said that. He had his little whiteboard with all his stupid figures on it. He doesn't know anything. He's perhaps the biggest failure within the Republican Party. Romney lost. John McCain lost, and he was in denial completely in 2012 when he realized what I had realized months before, which was Romney was fundamentally incapable of winning enough swing states to actually win the election. He didn't realize that. Everyone else on Fox dawned to that realization as soon as the exit polling came in. He waited and waited until half the results were in Ohio to finally give up, and he stormed off stage. And he looked crazy when he was doing that. But we've got Rubio's campaign actually admitting they can't reach the delegate total. What more evidence do you need? He can't win. His own campaign manager understands this. I would think this would be a reason not to vote for Marco Rubio. It's only Super Tuesday. Mitt Romney hadn't sewn up the nomination until later on in April. Donald Trump, it's barely March, and Trump is already seemingly invulnerable here. You don't need much more evidence. A couple more states going through to solidify his obvious hold in the Northeast, the Deep South, is going to show people the entire eastern half of the country is going to be Trump territory. Once Rubio continues to decline, he's not going to be a force in a place like Michigan, as I originally thought he may possibly be. It's obvious that's no longer possible for him. This Great Lakes region in the Mid-Atlantic, which had been sort of Rubio's strongholds, as he declines, which he certainly is already doing and likely to do far faster now that this leaked audio is out, now that his campaign manager has said he can't win, because people were flocking to Rubio as an electable candidate. Well, if he's not actually electable by delegate counts, why vote for him? They'll abandon him completely. And these are states where it's heavily advantaged towards Trump. Cruz has been consistently in third in most of these states. He can compete in some of the marginal lakes regions. But the Mid-Atlantic, I think you've seen Ted Cruz is far behind Trump and Rubio there. The same is true with the marginal state like Kentucky, which is sort of between it's sort of, Kentucky's a weird state. It's like on the cusp of being deep south, mid-Atlantic, lower lakes, and like far Midwest or something. It's like literally the convergence of the entire country in that region into like Missouri and Ohio in this general region. I mean, these states, it's like they should be their own group because they don't quite belong to any of these other groups. But yeah, Rubio is basically done. His campaign manager has admitted he's doomed when it comes to the delegate count. Why on earth would you continue supporting him? You'd be better off supporting Kasich at this point. And Kasich, of course, has, 27 delegates. So he doesn't have a path forward either. There are currently 2 candidates in the race who can theoretically get enough delegates to get over that margin. Trump is 100 delegates ahead of Cruz, has a massive advantage in most of the states coming up over Cruz, and he now has a third-tier candidate named Rubio who has self-sabotaged his campaign, has been disavowed by Fox, essentially, whose campaign manager no longer thinks he can win. Why is he still running then? He should drop out at this point. He won't. He'll continue to get a few delegates here and there. But at this point, my advice to Rubio, drop out before Florida. Because if you're in the running in Florida when the primary there takes place and you don't win your home state, you're out of a job. You're not going to get reelected as a senator. You are still young. You're in your fucking 40s. You're still young enough so you could still run for the presidency 4 cycles from now, theoretically, after getting more political experience, building more alliances, making more, taking more drugs, certainly, because he's popping some sort of pills. Nobody knows what they are. I would never vote for him, but a lot of people have a very short attention span, which is why Jeb Bush was the clear front runner until Trump decided to usurp him. My advice would be stay in the Senate, maybe run for governor or something, and then wait a few cycles and try again, on the strength of your third place finish in this election cycle. Drop out before Florida so that you don't make a fool of yourself. Ted Cruz probably would have dropped out if he thought that there was a real chance he would lose Texas. That's why he went there to campaign so hard. He didn't want any possibility that he'd get fucked in his own home state. Kasich, drop out before Ohio if you know what's good for you. Not a great idea to lose in your own home state to somebody who supposedly is hated by 90% of the U.S. population. Doesn't look good for your resume. So yeah, we got major news here and links in the description to some of this material. That's about all. Peace out.